There are people who walk into a room without saying a word, without waving a hand or flashing a smile, yet the entire atmosphere slows down. Not because he has muscles, not because he's powerful or famous, but because he is present, in a way that makes others wary. I used to think presence was something innate, but no. It is forged, in silence, in discipline, in the inner battles no one ever sees. A dangerous man is not one who threatens, but one who cannot be controlled. In today's video, we'll share with you 7 quiet, profound behaviors, each radiating a silent power. You may already have a few of these within you. They just need to be awakened properly. If this journey resonates with you, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share this message of calm and resilience, because some powers don't need noise to be recognized. 1. Mastery over desire. Have you ever felt like you're constantly running, endlessly craving, yet never feeling enough? You look around, people with beautiful cars, big homes, happy marriages, successful careers, and you, still wavering in the space between. Sometimes it's that very feeling of not enough that exhausts you, in both heart and mind. I remember a friend who confided in me after his divorce. He said, "I'm not sad because I lost my wife. I'm sad because I felt like I had nothing worth staying for." So he threw himself into making money, going to the gym, casual dating, as if having everything others desired would somehow heal his own cracks. But is that really how it works? Stoicism doesn't ask you to reject the beautiful things in life. It simply asks, if one day they're gone, what remains within you? Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the one who craves more, who is poor." And to me, that's one of the clearest truths I've ever heard. This world manipulates through temptation, from billboards, admiring glances, empty praise, to the lure of powerful titles. Everything wants you to believe you need more to be happy. But when you can say no, not from fear, but because you genuinely don't need it, that's when you touch a very real kind of strength. The strength of someone no longer pulled by desire. I once met an old man, nearly 70, living alone. No wife, no children, not much money. But he was strangely peaceful. Every morning he rose early, walked around the lake, read, cooked for himself. I asked him once, "Don't you get lonely?" He smiled. "What comes, comes. What leaves, let it go." He didn't preach philosophy, he lived it. That's the man I think of whenever I speak of freedom. Because you know what? A man not controlled by desire is a man the world no longer holds a knife to. He cannot be bought, manipulated, or seduced. And that makes him dangerous, in the most unbothered way. If you've ever found yourself lost chasing what others expect from you, maybe it's time to stop and ask, what inside me is still unsettled? And when you learn to want less, you begin to have more. Not in things, but in peace. 2. Absolute indifference to opinion. Imagine a morning like this. You walk into your usual cafe, sit at your favorite corner table, sip a strong black coffee, and check your phone. Within seconds, someone has commented on the photo you posted yesterday. A harsh comment, a mocking remark, and suddenly, that peaceful moment vanishes. Have you ever felt that way? Just one word, one glance, one passing judgment. Enough to shake you, make you question yourself. I felt it too. And I understand. It's not easy to stay indifferent to opinions in a world where everyone is watching, judging, expecting you to conform. But you know what? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." When I read that for the first time, it felt like a slap to the face. Because it's true. We spend our lives seeking approval, yet forget the one person who most needs our trust, ourselves. A man I once worked with in therapy said, I don't dress the way I like. I dress so my boss thinks I'm professional. I go to the gym not because I want to be healthy, but because I don't want to be seen as weak. Sound familiar? Stoicism doesn't teach you to be cold. It simply asks, do you live by your true values, or by how others see you? The truly dangerous man is not the one who argues with every critic. He is the one who does not need praise to keep going. He does not explain, does not seek permission, does not require the crowd's approval, and he is unmoved by applause or ridicule, because he knows value doesn't lie in how others react, but in how firmly he stands by what he knows is right. If you're tired of living to meet others' expectations, try living one day as if no one is watching you. And then you'll realize silence is not always avoidance. Sometimes it's the power of someone who no longer needs to be understood. And in that indifference, you'll touch the first true freedom of your life. 3. The power of silent presence. Have you ever walked into a crowded room, and your eyes were instantly drawn to someone, not because he was talking, but because he said absolutely nothing? He sat there, still, unassuming. Yet somehow, his presence was louder than those cracking jokes or trying to shine. I call that the language of silence, and believe me, not everyone knows how to speak it. An old friend of mine, a former Special Forces officer, once said, "The scariest man in the room is the one who speaks the least, not because he's dangerous, but because he has nothing to prove." Have you ever met someone like that? He doesn't argue to win, doesn't raise his voice to be heard, because each look, each subtle nod, is enough to make others pause. In therapy, I once worked with a successful businessman going through a midlife crisis. He told me, "I've spent my whole life talking to be acknowledged, but I never learned how to just be quiet and observe." Ironically, once he started practicing silence, his wife and kids finally began to truly listen to him. Stoicism doesn't call for you to be mute, but it teaches. You don't always need to speak. Silence, when chosen with intention, is a kind of strength the crowd cannot comprehend. And so, the man who knows when to speak and when to remain silent is the one who truly controls himself. And the man who controls himself is one no one else can control. 4. Ruthless emotional control. There are times when you're insulted, criticized, or simply placed in situations where others intentionally try to push you out of your center. They want to see you explode, want you to react, want you to lose control. And if you let that happen, you've lost. Not the argument, but your mastery over yourself. A man once told me he was humiliated by his boss in front of the entire meeting room. Inside, he felt a fire, ego, pride, hurt, all rising to his throat. But he said nothing, didn't react, just looked straight into his boss's eyes. Silent. After the meeting, it was the boss who approached him to apologize. You see, reacting is instinct, but controlling your reaction, that's power. Epictetus once said, "Anyone capable of angering you becomes your master." Stoicism doesn't teach you to be emotionless. It teaches you to delay the reaction so you can respond with reason, not with the survival reflex of a child whose pride has been touched. When someone insults you, they want you to lose it. When someone pokes at your pain, they wait for the explosion. So when you don't react, when you don't give them the show they expect, they're left fumbling, facing their own reflection. I once saw a father sit calmly while his teenage son lashed out in anger. No shouting, no threats. He just listened, then quietly asked, "Where do you feel hurt, son?" And that calm presence was what helped the boy finally soften. You see, a man who can no longer be emotionally provoked by anyone is a man to be reckoned with. Not because he is stronger than others, but because he has mastered the fire within. And a fire that is mastered can warm a room or burn it down if needed. The difference? He chooses not to use it, unless absolutely necessary, and that alone makes others quietly wary. 5. Stillness in chaos. Imagine this. You're standing at a busy intersection. Car horns blaring, people arguing, loud announcements echoing. The world feels like a storm that never ends. And in the middle of all this noise, one man walks through. Quietly, slowly, steadily, as if he's strolling through a forest, not a chaotic street. Have you ever seen someone like that? I once witnessed an old doctor in an emergency room. There was blood, screaming, pressure. Everyone was overwhelmed. Except him. His hands steady, eyes focused, voice soft as a breeze. Stay calm. We've got this. And it was his stillness in the eye of the storm that saved a life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Stoicism doesn't tell you to remove yourself from the world. It teaches you to live in it, without letting it shake your inner foundation. Anyone can stay calm when life is easy, but only the truly strong remain composed when the world around them is falling apart. No yelling, no rage, no impulsive reactions. Just the quiet decision to anchor yourself in inner peace, because you know, if you lose that, you'll have nothing left to hold on to in the storm. I once asked a veteran soldier, "What's the hardest thing on the battlefield?" He replied, "Not the bullets. It's keeping your mind clear when everyone else is panicking." So, my friend, if you're in a chaotic season of life, loss, anxiety, crisis, remember this. You don't need to control the world. You just need to not let it pull you away from yourself. And sometimes, all it takes is a slow breath, a patient glance, to make the whole world pause for a moment. Because the man who doesn't get swept up by the storm is the one who can become the eye of it, unmoved by any wind. 6. Acting. Without the need to impress, one afternoon, I sat at my usual cafe and saw an older man helping a young woman push her broken bike. No one was filming, no applause. He simply smiled, nodded, and rode away quietly. I watched him disappear and asked myself, why is it that the kindest acts, the most memorable gestures, always come from those who don't need to be noticed? Have you ever asked yourself that? Today's world feels like a stage, every gesture, choice, and word waiting for an audience. We speak to be praised, we act to be seen, and often, we choose a path not because it's right, but because it's approved. Stoicism walks the opposite way. It teaches, do what is right without a stage. The strongest man is the one who still does right when no one is watching. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning, do not expect reward. The reward is to be a good person. The dangerous man isn't the one who shows off his virtue. He doesn't say, I live righteously. He simply lives, quietly, steadfastly. He doesn't seek recognition, doesn't need applause, because action born from inner strength creates true value, not borrowed from outside approval. 7. Independent thinking beyond the herd, mentality. Have you ever been in a room where everyone was laughing at something you didn't find funny at all? Have you ever heard everyone agree with a certain opinion, but inside, something felt off, untrue, or wrong? Yet you stayed silent, afraid of standing out, afraid of being judged, afraid of being the only one who didn't nod.
I know that feeling. And I, too, have chosen silence many times, blending into the crowd instead of standing up for what I believed. But you know what? Marcus Aurelius once wrote something worth reflecting on. If something is right, do not be concerned if few people do it. Stoicism doesn't promote rebellion for the sake of ego. It trains you in a quiet kind of power, the strength of someone who can stand alone and not feel wrong for doing so. This world runs on numbers, and most people follow the crowd, not because they believe in it, but because they don't want to be left out. But the truly dangerous man is the one who thinks with his own mind. He doesn't oppose to be noticed. He doesn't conform to be liked. He lives, acts, and decides based on values he has reflected on, tested, and lived through. I once counseled a woman in her 40s, a marketing director. She confided, "I no longer believe in the illusions my industry sells. But if I speak up, I might lose my position." I didn't tell her what to choose. I simply said, "There will come a time when the silence of your conscience will weigh heavier than the risk of truth." 3 months later, she resigned. She founded an educational organization for healthy media practices among teenagers. She didn't do it for applause. She simply could no longer continue lying. You see, independent thinking isn't rebellion. It's having the courage to live by what you know is real and right, even if no one else supports you. And a person like that commands both respect and caution, because someone who can stand alone can also change the crowd. Someone who isn't afraid of being alone cannot be forced to act against his own beliefs. And that's why the independently minded individual is always the most formidable presence in any room. Dear friend, we live in a world where noise is glorified, quick reactions are mistaken for strength, and attention has become the ultimate currency. But a truly strong man doesn't need any of that. He shows up without needing validation. He remains silent without being diminished. He walks through chaos while his soul stays still, like a calm lake in autumn. The 7 behaviors you've just heard aren't easy, but they're not impossible either. They don't come from theory, but from living honestly, one day at a time. Letting go of desire, releasing what's beyond your control, and focusing on the one thing you truly have power over, yourself. If you saw a piece of yourself in what I shared today, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. And if this journey toward becoming a calm, grounded, untouchable man speaks to you, please hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs it. Because the greatest changes always begin from the silence within